Story 1. In the summer of 2015, the right was convinced that the United States Army had turned traitor and sworn eternal allegiance to only Obama. Obama was going to use only 1,200 of these soldiers to invade, conquer, and occupy Texas, with a population of 30 million, like it was France, and turn it into the first part of the Abaminist Empire. The Grand Old Party believed this to the point that the Texas government ordered a partial mobilization of the Texas State Guard to monitor the United States Army. At no point did Obama make any sort of joke or tweet about doing this. Story 2. MAGA would absolutely lose it if any Democrat did everything that Trump is doing. That's the uneducated cultist mentality these people have. The biggest bunch of hypocritical individuals the world has to offer. Story 3. Conservatives love to clutch pearls. Clinton's affair was a constitutional crisis, for goodness sake. If any Democratic president even jokingly referred to themselves as a king, it would blow up all over the Fox News cycle for weeks. A large portion of the conservative voter base, which struggles to think independently, would be outraged and discussing the need for the next American Revolution. Story 4. Are you serious? Fox News went apoplectic when Obama wore a tan suit. There would be literal convoys of Dodge Rams of MEAL Team 6 aiming to invade the White House if Obama joked about being king. Story 5. Can you imagine if Biden or Obama had George Soros come in and run the government? The newly named Gulf of America would be brown from all the carp the supporters of Make America Great Again and the Republican Party would raise. Story 6. At this point, if Obama strolled into the Oval Office and hacked Trump's head off with a sword and had it mounted on a post out front, I'd gladly hail Barack I. Story 7. You mean the guy they had stories on for weeks about the one time he wore a tan suit and how democracy was now destroyed? Yeah, I'm sure those people would react normally. Story 8. Their entire personality was an act to end our democracy and install theocratic fascism, and they did it. Do not expect these kinds of posts to resonate. Story 9. Joking versus already showing schemes, ambitions, and intent of abusing executive privileges to the extent of that of a despotic or dictator status are completely different things. Action against this corruption must be taken before more disaster befalls us all. Story 10. What difference does it make how people would have reacted then? What are we going to do now? I am tired of seeing the hypocrisy and double standards being constantly called out. Anytime these domestic terrorists cross another line, if Democrats had done, Republicans would have, yes, great, thanks for making the same point everyone makes when a new headline hits the front page. This is counterproductive. We know, bro. We know. They were ready to impeach Obama for wearing a tan suit and lock him up in Guantanamo Bay. Meanwhile, Elon is wearing a flesh suit made from illegally fired federal workers who committed suicide after losing their job. It is time to talk about what we are going to do, not what the other side would have done if the situation were reversed. Story 11. Pointing out Republican hypocrisy is a waste of your time. They know they can do and say whatever they want, even if it is the opposite of what they pretended to care about yesterday. They enjoy flaunting it. Story 12. Ironically, the conservatives were losing their minds about this during President Obama's presidency. They were saying how Obama was never going to leave office. Mind you, Obama never said anything of the sort. They just made it all up. Now those same people are celebrating former President Trump calling himself a king and are okay with him never leaving office. Conservatives are nothing but hypocrites. Story 13. They would lose their minds. They only want authoritarian fascism if it is their guy, because they are hypocritical, short-sighted, and easily manipulated. Story 14. My grandma lived in absolute fear that President Obama was going to be a dictator, with no indication or jokes about it. She had a book outlining how he was the Antichrist that she wanted everyone in the family to read. But the irony is that President Trump literally stated he wanted to be a dictator and is doing very dictator-like things, which aligns with Antichrist traits if we want to get biblical. My grandma sees nothing wrong because she is just as hateful and racist as President Trump is, and she wants him to be king. Story 15. The Republican Party tried turning the tiniest things into controversies. Remember the suit controversy? If Obama jokingly declared himself king, we would be looking at Republican states talking about secession. I think even the Democrats would say it isn't funny and reprimand him. With Trump, everyone kind of expects him to make a fool of himself. He gets way more leeway than anyone should. Do you remember when an enthusiastic scream torpedoed Howard Dean's campaign? It wasn't at all justified, but I now miss those days when politicians had to walk on eggshells because now they're just going to keep pushing the limit. Story 16. Every conservative I have ever met in my life is a massive hypocrite about just about everything, so naturally, they would freak out. Literally zero conservatives have any level of political empathy or will acknowledge that if a Democratic president did anything Trump is doing now, they would be acting out and committing violent acts. Story 17. There would have been absolute uproar. Fox would have gone into meltdown, and there would have been Republicans on every talk show holding up a constitution and declaring how we are not a monarchy. Story 18. This is the thing. Everyone, both Democrats and Republicans, would be outraged. The new Republican Party seems to have removed any line they aren't willing to cross, but Democrats at least have boundaries. Anyone who says this United States leader or official is just trolling by saying "Long live the king," or anything along those lines is not for anyone but themselves. They have no boundaries or lines they won't cross as long as their side wins. Questions like the original posters can be frustrating because there's never a thoughtful answer from the people they want an answer from. Story 19. See, Sleepy Joe and Barack Hussein Obama want to rule over us with an iron fist. He admitted it. Impeach tyrant Joe and Obama now. Fox News and Make America Great Again supporters. Oh, that Obama and Joe, such jokers. Everyone else who understands jokes. Story 20. People keep pointing to these hypocrisies, but I am telling you they are by design and literally used as a strategic advantage. They do not care about their hypocrisy and are very pleased you spend so much time thinking about it. Story 21. Why do these posts keep appearing, and within 30 minutes they have thousands of upvotes? This is not organic. It is always obvious, on-the-nose political questions. Who is doing this to Reddit? Just one per day, like clockwork. Story 22. Anyone who voted for Trump is beyond all reason. I'm not saying this in an exaggerated way. They have demonstrated that they refuse to believe eminent legal, economic, and medical scholars. So why, on God's green earth, would they possibly consider this hypothetical situation? Story 23. Let's be real. They would all collectively lose their minds if that happened, even if it was more obviously a joke. They would go on about how it's not a joking matter. Their guy, though, well, that's okay. He's joking, right? No, I don't think he is. He aspires to be a supreme leader like Vladimir Putin or Adolf Hitler. Story 24. A tan suit, ice cream, and mustard got a giant reaction. Meanwhile, no one cares about numerous embarrassing behaviors by Donald Trump, Elon Musk, or the political right. The wealthy have deceived people and created a red hat cult. The cult is willingly giving up their rights, their neighbors, their money, and their souls. Story 25. I hate to say it, but electing Obama broke the Republicans. They completely lost it. It gave birth to the Tea Party that then morphed into Make America Great Again. Who knows where we go from here? Story 26. I'm not excusing it, but this is exactly what he wants. He knows half the country will bend a knee while the other half foam at the mouth. Actually hilarious how politics 101. This is, and yet everyone is biting. Story 27. MAGA supporters would literally take to the streets. Meanwhile, Trump does it, and the media just shrugs and goes, "That Donald, what a scamp." While Democrats say they can't do anything if he declares himself God Emperor for eternity. Story 28. Remember the tan suit that Obama wore and how the Republicans in Fox News lost their minds? Yeah, that's how they would react, and then some if either one declared themselves king. Story 29. Considering the right wing is practically 60% or more functionally schizophrenic at this point, I think any speculation regarding violence and panic would be correct. Story 30. We would never hear the end of it. Fox News would run with it 24/7. Then mainstream media would feel they had to cover it in order to show they are balanced. If the grand old party was in charge of Congress, they would launch impeachment proceedings immediately. Faced with media pressure, Democratic leaders would demand first clarification, then an apology, then some kind of punishment. Story 31. They would have lost their minds, but also they would have done nothing at all, just like now. The interesting question is if either of those presidents had meant it, and if that would have changed things. I have a hard time imagining that they would, though. Regardless, I think it would play out in pretty much the same way this is playing out. I think the most instructive thing about current events is that we should probably recognize that people sort of seem to want to be ruled, which has always been a surprise to me, but I've seen it in managerial positions and relationships. I certainly can't explain it because I've always strived to create situations that are as egalitarian and consensus-based as possible, but there is just an alarming number of people out there who genuinely want someone to be in charge of them. The remainder don't really know what to do to prevent it, and frankly, there's not much they can do without rolling out the guillotines anyway, and nobody wants to do that while there's still a possibility you wind up with a head rolling around on the floor saying, "It was just a prank, bro." I think the problem this time is that Trump means it. He thinks the country is full of dumb people that need to be ruled. He should know. He found them and got them to elect him. So while the comparison is interesting and I think in terms of public response actually looks more or less the same, I think the real problem is that Trump actually means it. And that is quite a difference. Story 32. I would be more surprised if a Democrat were actually showing that they have any level of political power to do anything, rather than just throwing their hands up and doing nothing. Story 33. I personally don't remember this, but it seems President Obama made a few Game of Thrones jokes during a White House Correspondents' Dinner and a Photoshop of him sitting on the Iron Throne, which was later posted to Twitter. The context is quite different, but it did happen, and as you can imagine, a few conservatives took the opportunity to grandstand. Story 34. Seeing as Obama's tan suit was such a scandalous thing that I remember it a decade later this side of the pond, could I perhaps take a leap of faith and suggest not very well? Story 35. We all know they would lose their minds. They know they would lose their minds too. The people that support Trump are brainwashed. There is literally no helping some of them. I have seen so many people actually glad about this, even people saying we need a king. They are stupid, gullible, childish, and hypocritical. They do not care as long as the other side loses. Story 36. The funny thing about a question like this is that the majority of Reddit would lean liberal, so all the answers you're going to get are obviously outrage. The bitter truth is, as Democrats, we are lost without a direction. Look at the most recent election. The majority of white registered voters, men and women under 30, voted for Trump because the economy was the most important thing. A large number of Latino men voted for Trump because of illegal immigration. Kamala Harris ran on Joe Biden's broken plan and reproductive rights for women. They didn't resonate with voters. Us shouting out the hypocrisy of the right doesn't change anything. The Democrats used to stand for something. The under 30 crowd not on Reddit voted that they didn't want to pay more at the grocery store, with the assumption that Trump wasn't really going to be a dictator like he said he would. The current strategy is to flood the news cycle with everything stupid so you're not paying attention to what he's really doing. Yes, there should be outrage, but it should be on the policies, firing veterans from government positions, giving non-elected individuals access to information they shouldn't get access to. Also, the Democrats need to be taken to task for playing politics with Trump. It's refreshing to see someone like J.B. Pritzker actually go after Trump versus killing him with kindness. Posts like this are just really getting Reddit together and the echo chamber on max, so we all feel like we're making a difference. Well, I used to stand for something. Now I'm on my hands and knees, traded in my God for this one. And he signs his name with a capital D. Apologies to 9 Inch Nails for the edit for current times. Story 37. I would personally think it was in bad taste, and I would lower my opinion of that person. It's a joke in bad taste, and one should not joke about treason and their government position. I know that other people would lose their minds though. Story 38. If the mustard tan suit, blackness, black wife, and arugula have anything to say about it, Fox News would have declared a full-scale violent war against Obama and all Democrats on live television. Story 39. Obama signed a couple of executive orders, and the right said it was tyranny and that he was ruling by decree. Now they're saying judges challenging executive orders is usurping executive power, even when the executive order is literally trying to oppose the Constitution regarding Trump's birthright citizenship executive order. If the right didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. Story 40. You already know the answer to this. When the Supreme Court came up with their absurd ruling that the president was essentially a king, I said President Biden should have immediately tested them, declared himself king, and had former President Trump thrown into Guantanamo Bay without trial. The actual bay, not the prison. Story 41. Do not even need to ask. There was a period where conservatives were seriously accusing Obama of acting like a king. Here is just one example from Fox, and plenty more exist with a simple search. It is pretty wild reading it in today's context. Story 42. Of all the things this piece of shit has done, this does not even register in my opinion. It would not be anything I would be bothered over if any of them, either party or whatever,